Don't come to Dad's birthday. It's a business-facing event, Chloe. You just wouldn't fit." That's what my sister texted me. The funny part? She was using my name on every investor document. I wasn't good enough to show up, but I was good enough to sell. My name's Chloe Danvers. I'm 30. And this is how I found out my sister erased me from the family, but kept my work. I stared at the text from Vanessa, my half-sister, as the sun dipped behind the skyline outside my apartment. She always knew how to deliver a gut punch wrapped in etiquette. The event was for my dad's 60th birthday, except it wasn't just a birthday. It was a full-blown PR show. Vanessa had turned it into a launch for her innovative healthcare startup, with sponsorships, media coverage, and even a staged fireside chat. Everyone who mattered would be there. Everyone except me. "It's a business-facing night," she added. "We've worked really hard on the image. Please don't make it awkward." I read it again. Please don't make it awkward, as if I was the problem. Not the fact that my own sister had erased me from a family gathering because I didn't wear designer, didn't work in PR, and, most importantly, because I had the nerve to walk away from the family company 6 years ago. Back then, I was the black sheep with grease on her hands and solder in her hair. A girl too obsessed with tech to smile right in photos. I'd left quietly, thinking I'd find space to build something real. Turns out I also walked straight into invisibility. I tossed my phone onto the couch and crossed the room. On my desk sat the one object that never let me forget who I was, a prototype chip no bigger than a dime. It was a sensor I'd been perfecting for years, a tiny piece of tech designed to help visually impaired users navigate stairs and obstacles with vibration feedback. No one in my family had ever asked about it. Not once. But Vanessa? She'd laughed at the idea over brunch, called it a sweet little hobby. Now she was about to unveil a device shockingly similar, with her face all over the press kit. I leaned on the windowsill, watching taillights blur across the highway. They didn't just leave me out. They erased me, until they needed the idea I wouldn't stop believing in. And now, they thought I'd stay silent? I smiled to myself. No, not this time. I wasn't even looking for it. It showed up in my inbox late Thursday night, forwarded by a friend from grad school, Liam, a product designer now working at a medical tech firm in Boston. Subject line, "You're gonna want to see this." I clicked. It was Vanessa's pitch deck. At first, I didn't recognize it. The colors were different. The branding was glossier. There were fake smiles of carefully selected models wearing lab coats. But 2 slides in, I froze. There it was. My sensor layout. Exact same module structure, even the same staggered dual feedback loop I had developed and tested for 3 years. I scrolled faster, my stomach tightening with each click. Page 12, technical overview, lead developer, C. Danvers. A chill crept down my spine. C. Danvers. Not Chloe, just the initial, just vague enough to pass as her, just stolen enough to make me disappear. Vanessa didn't just block me from the party. She used me. Used my name, my work, and buried it just deep enough in the presentation to make it look like a coincidence. To everyone else, C. Danvers would sound like her. To me, it was a punch to the throat. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Vanessa had always been the polished one, the public one. She smiled wide for cameras, pitched clean ideas she barely understood, and somehow always ended up at the center of the table, even when others did the work. 6 years ago, I showed her my early sketches. She laughed, called them too niche and not scalable, said I should think about something more fundable. I guess now they're fundable enough to present in front of the board of Linspire Capital. I sat at my desk for hours that night, just staring. Not crying, not shouting, just sitting in the wreckage of something that had once been mine. Have you ever had something like that happen? Something you created, dreamed of, sacrificed for, and someone else swooped in, wrapped it in their smile, and called it theirs? If you have, then you know what I felt that night. I didn't sleep, but I did send an email. To Linspire. Subject, clarification on authorship. C. Danvers. Attached, patent filings, schematic logs, time-stamped prototypes. No threats, no drama, just facts, because next time someone asked who created the core tech, I'd make sure the answer wasn't silence. I didn't show up at the house, didn't call, didn't confront. There was a time I might have, when I still thought family could be reasoned with, that being honest would fix something. But that version of me had packed her boxes 6 years ago and left. This time I chose silence, the kind that doesn't mean weakness, the kind that builds something. After sending the email to Linspire, I returned to my workshop, a cramped garage I'd converted into a lab. The walls were lined with circuit boards, power tools, half-assembled prototypes, and a beat-up whiteboard with faded equations still scrawled across it. No cameras, no investors, just me and the work. I pulled up my designs, the real ones, not the polished mock-ups Vanessa had put on slides, but the gritty tested models that had gone through failure after failure until they finally worked. And they worked. 3 weeks ago, I demoed my prototype to a group of visually impaired veterans. One man, 62 years old and completely blind in one eye, cried after walking an entire obstacle course unassisted. That was real. Vanessa's version, a polished lie with my fingerprints scrubbed off. By the time Linspire responded to my email, I had already updated all my documentation. My patents were clean. My role was clear. They replied within 24 hours. We were unaware of this discrepancy. Would you be open to a direct conversation with our executive team? That's when it shifted. I didn't lash out. I didn't send angry texts. I simply scheduled a meeting. It happened quietly, over Zoom. A few men in suits, a woman from legal, and me in a hoodie, hair tied up, a soldering iron still cooling on the desk beside me. I didn't try to sell myself. I just showed them the system in real time. Ran a live test, pulled up engineering logs from 4 years ago with timestamps and version trails. I saw their faces change. By the end of the call, the VP leaned forward and said, "We'd like to restructure this partnership, Ms. Danvers, with you as lead." I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Instead, I printed the new agreement, signed it in blue ink, and slipped it into a manila folder. The event was 4 days away. Vanessa had banned me from Dad's birthday, but Linspire had just confirmed their attendance, and I'd be the one standing next to them. Not for revenge, not for show, just to reclaim the space they never thought I deserved. The ballroom glittered like something out of a magazine spread, crystal chandeliers, silver gold everything, and guests dripping in designer tuxedos. Even the welcome sign screamed wealth, celebrating 60 years of vision, Daniel Danvers. I stood across the street for a full minute before stepping out of the car. My heels hit the pavement like punctuation marks. I wasn't wearing red. I wasn't trying to be loud. Just a navy suit, clean lines, no labels. The only statement I wore was the folder tucked under my arm and the lanyard around my neck. Linspire Capital, Partner Access. Inside, the party was already in full swing. Vanessa stood on stage, flashing that perfect press-trained smile as the MC read her title, Strategic Lead, Danvers Medical Solutions. She gestured gracefully to the screen behind her, renderings of a sleek device, clean typography, stock video of smiling patients. The applause was warm, not wild, polite. I waited near the back beside a floral arch. A Linspire rep saw me and nodded. "Right after the video. You're up." The video ended. Vanessa turned to the crowd, ready to continue. That's when the MC's voice cut in. "And now, we'd like to invite to the stage the visionary behind the sensor system we're backing, Ms. Chloe Danvers." Silence. Sharp. Instant. Someone dropped a glass. I stepped forward. Vanessa blinked. "There must be some mistake," she said into the mic, but it didn't sound confident. I kept walking, each step quiet, but heavy. Dad turned from his table. His smile faltered when he saw me. Rachel, Vanessa's PR manager, looked like she'd swallowed a thumbtack. I took the mic. "Hi, I won't take long," I said, voice steady. "I just thought it was time the people funding this technology met the person who built it." I held up the folder. Patent filings, development logs, working prototypes. If you're going to call it innovation, at least call it by its right name. Vanessa tried to interject, but Linspire's lead partner, seated in the front row, leaned in. "We verified everything. Chloe's our developer of record. She's the reason we're here." Dad looked like he was trying to process a different language. I didn't look at him long, because I wasn't here to win him back. I was here to reclaim the space that should have been mine from the start. Have you ever walked into a room full of people who thought you'd never show up? only to remind them gently that you were the reason they gathered? Yeah, it feels exactly like this. The tension didn't break. It snapped. As I stepped off the stage, the crowd didn't cheer. They whispered, shifted, looked at Vanessa like the light had suddenly changed and revealed something they weren't supposed to see. She grabbed the mic again, voice shaking beneath the PR gloss. "This is being twisted. I've worked on this project for over a year." The Linspire partner stood up. "You worked on the presentation. Ms. Danvers built the tech. Let's be clear." Her face went pale. Someone coughed near the back. No one clapped. I felt Dad's stare burn into the side of my face, but I didn't meet his eyes. Instead, I stepped to the table where the Linspire team sat and laid the folder flat. "Full documentation. I submitted the first patent 4 years ago. The designs Vanessa used, pulled from my early stage drafts. No credit, no mention." Vanessa shook her head, lips parting like she had something rehearsed. But nothing came out. She looked small. For once, her words weren't enough to hold the room. Rachel, the PR manager, tugged her sleeve. "We need to get ahead of this," she whispered. Too late. Dad finally rose, slowly, like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. He looked between the two of us. "You said Chloe wasn't interested in the company anymore," he said, voice hoarse. Vanessa didn't answer. He turned to me. "Why didn't you say something?" I looked at him, not unkindly, just tired. "Because the last time I did, you told me to let the business people handle it. I am the business people now." That landed hard. He sat back down, silent. Someone from the media started to rise, but Linspire's rep stood faster. "We're still proud to back this technology, but we're restructuring the partnership. Effective immediately, Chloe Danvers will serve as lead innovator and spokesperson moving forward." You could feel the finality of it, like a door closing. Vanessa sat down, shoulders dropped. Rachel pulled out her phone, already spinning crisis control. No one clapped, no one had to. Because the truth didn't need applause. It just needed air. Ever been in a room where your silence was louder than anyone's speech? Where the truth didn't come with fireworks, but still left people stunned? If you've ever felt invisible, I promise you, you're not. Sometimes it just takes one moment for the world to see you back. The morning after the party, I woke up to an inbox full of emails. Investors, journalists, former professors, people I hadn't spoken to in years, congratulating me, apologizing, asking for quotes, for meetings, for partnerships. I let them wait. Instead, I brewed coffee, wrapped myself in an old hoodie, and walked out to the garage, my lab. It was quiet, just how I liked it. The sensor prototypes lined up on the workbench, right where I left them. Tools scattered, notes taped to the wall, a soldering iron still warm from the night before the event. The only new thing was a small brown box. No label. Inside, my first engineering notebook from college. On the inside cover, a sticky note in familiar handwriting. For Chloe, who builds even when no one's watching. Liam. I sat down, let myself breathe. Last night didn't erase the years they ignored me. It didn't fix the ache of being cut out of birthdays, holidays, or family photos. But it did something else. It put the truth back where it belonged. Dad hadn't said much after the announcement. But before I left the ballroom, he walked over, hands trembling a little. He looked at me, not like I was a stranger. Not like I was a mistake. Like he finally saw me. "I was wrong," he said. "I'm sorry I didn't listen when it mattered." I didn't say much back, just nodded, because I wasn't there for an apology. I wasn't there to be rescued. I had already rescued myself. Now, my name's back on the project. The tech will go into testing this fall. And Vanessa, she's quiet, off social media, out of press tours. I don't hate her. I just finally stopped letting her define me. If you're still watching, maybe you've been where I've been. Maybe you've been left off the guest list, told you don't belong, had your work taken, your name erased, your voice dismissed. Let me say this as clearly as I can. You are not invisible, and you don't need anyone's permission to build something that matters. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't a mic drop or a public takedown. It's a quiet life built on truth, purpose, and power they never saw coming. So tell me, what's your quiet victory? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.